Oh, hello there. We're restoring a 250-acre ranch in Northern California. It's been abandoned for over 15 years and then was burned to a crisp in the 2020 fires. The landscape is littered with thousands of standing dead trees and there's erosion everywhere. What's growing back is stunted and struggling, and we have no idea what we're doing.
Well, that's not entirely true. I've read enough books to think I know what I'm doing. I'm not a rancher, farmer, or agricultural expert, so there's a lot to learn.
My name is Nick Cronan, and for over a decade, my family and friends have suffered through countless dinner table conversations about rotational grazing, nutrient density, water cycles, and everyone's favorite, soil health. I've had a long career in industrial design. The author and statistician Edward Tufte describes design as clear thinking made visual. We developed new and novel ways of approaching challenges, old and new. And after 25 years of doing it, I've brought a lot of things into this world. Robots, cell phones, headphones, more headphones, razors, scooters, ovens, TVs, chairs, shelving, laptops, espresso machines, vaporizers, packaging, coffee grinders, cups, drones, pots and pans, popcorn makers, lab equipment,
Coffee brewers, electric kettles, a motorcycle, air conditioning, sculptures, and toothbrushes. I started to question the value of what I was creating, not just whether it worked or whether it was actually good for the world beyond its intended use. In nature, there's no waste. Everything feeds something else. Every output is something else's input. The things that I was designing, they all had a beginning and they all had an end, and that end usually was the landfill. While I was questioning my career choice and what I was actually contributing to and leaving behind, I found myself escaping to the garden and to books about food. And there's a book called Eating on the Wild Side by Joe Robinson, and that was where I learned that if you smashed garlic before eating it, these two compounds mix inside and make it more flavorful, but also more nutritious. The next thing I read was The Omnivore's Dilemma, followed by The Botany of Desire. And I started just becoming more and more fascinated with flavor and health and where they come from. The chef Dan Barber put out a book called The Third Plate, which talks about how chefs are starting to think about the entire food system, not just what's on the plate. Nicole Masters' book, For the Love of Soil, talks about the relationship between healthy soil and healthy bodies. She has this ability to look at what's growing and what's not and have a really good sense of what your soil is deficient in.
Whoa. And then there's Gabe Brown's Dirt to Soil and Mark Shepard's Restoration Agriculture.
Both of those demonstrated very clearly that degraded land didn't have to be that way. With every new book, I was exposed to a new world of thinking. Charles Massey's Call of the Reed Warbler sent me down a rabbit hole learning all about Australia and how Western agriculture upended the brilliance of ancient Aboriginal land stewardship.
At some point, someone directed me to Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which is such an incredible book. I was so taken with it that I immediately went on eBay and purchased up as many inexpensive first edition issues to hand out to friends when they came over for dinner. From there, I had a rash of really depressing books. Stephen Emmett's 10 Billion, Elizabeth Colbert's The Sixth Extinction, David Montgomery's Dirt, The Erosion of Civilization. I decided to further punish myself and read The Uninhabitable Earth and Losing Earth, A Recent History, and then finally We Are the Weather. And if you really want to spiral out, read all three of those books back to back.
It was about that time when The Biggest Little Farm came out, and the timing could not have been better because I was really starting to bum out about the fact that we were all going to die. And it started to paint a different picture about the fact that regeneration and restoration is possible. Even one of my favorite Top Gear presenters, Jeremy Clarkson, bought a farm and started a show called Clarkson's Farm, which was really great at depicting both the struggle and the beauty of modern agriculture. As I was winding down my design career, when I wasn't reading, watching, or listening to content about agriculture, nutrition, or ecosystems, I made it my day job to be as informed as possible about these topics and anything related.
Eventually, that meant spending time with farmers, ranchers, scientists, basically anyone who would talk to me to learn more about their world, their challenges, and their approaches. It's one thing to be really well read on a subject and to spend a bunch of time on farms and ranches, but at a certain point I realized that I needed to do this myself. And what better way than to start a living lab?
Did I intend to take on a project this big? Nope. No, I did not. I was looking for a raw piece of land in the 10 to 50 acre range when this popped up on Zillow, and it was too good to pass up.
This place is nuts.
The price was right, it was close to home, and it was rough, which is exactly what I was looking for. The first time I drove past, I noticed just how many dead trees there were from the fire. There were shrubs dotted along the hillside, which I've come to realize are the trees that are trying to come back, but they're in a stunted state. It seemed to go on for miles of just degraded, eroded, abandoned land. And there were no animals, there were no birds that I could see, there was no insects. Of course, there's a bird chirping right now as I'm starting to say that. Shh.
Over the years, I've become increasingly obsessed with finding examples from people around the world who have documented what regeneration looks like. Degraded land recovering, building resilience to weather and fire, and thriving. I've seen what's possible, and I want to believe that it can work here.
This is the perfect testing ground. What's here is what's here. And obviously there are signs of man-made structures and fence lines and roads. Here's the thing, most people don't do a great job of documenting the before. We need to understand what we're really working with. Our instinct is to jump in and fix things, but we don't really understand what's here first.
And we're going to study this landscape to the greatest extent we can, and rope in people who actually know what they're doing.
This looks like a fig. How cool would that be? This is a fig.
What makes it look like a fig?
I don't know, just the way the branches are structured and like they look like this right now. And just it's giving fig.
I have much to learn about the ecology, the geology, patterns, and the potential of what's actually here.
Oh, it's just recording. Oh, there you go.
The first time we drove on the property was really exciting and nerve-wracking because we didn't know anything about it other than what was on Zillow. And this is the first shot of the driveway, which was already blowing my mind.
There's a fucking helicopter.
You can close the window.
No way. Oh yeah.
Oh, this is perfect weird.
We first got to see the property in the summer of 2025, and we ended up closing on it in January 26. So a lot has changed in the landscape in the meantime. Our job now is to learn what's here and to make new discoveries every day. The first thing to understand is water and how much is actually here, because that will determine everything else.
Okay, this is the pump house and the spring that we know of. And part of what we're doing is we need to figure out how much water comes out of it. And if there's multiple springs, is there one spring? Are there 3 springs? Is there water coming from somewhere else? All of that goes to the pump house, which doesn't currently work. And it's under about a foot of water because it's in a low depression here. So everything here has to be reimagined and figured out. Also, we got no information from the previous owner. So the handoff wasn't perfect, but that's part of the fun, I guess. So this is about a 2,500 gallon water tank. And it's currently sealed
and dripping water. Water's coming from somewhere, we don't know. It's sitting in water as well. It's just soaked all around here. It's fiberglass, and next time we're gonna figure out how to open it up and see what's inside. So one of the things that you can see here is there's a ton of PVC pipe going in all different directions, and some of it's hooked up and some of it isn't. I haven't even started to think about or look at what's going on here. All I know is that I can hear water. I can hear water flowing down here. I can hear water flowing up here. There's a PVC pipe with water spouting. There is another spring over here that has something coming out of it, but there's water. It's flowing right now, and it wasn't flowing this hard last October, but it was still flowing, which is a good sign. There's a pond over there. So before we do anything, before we dig a well, before we find out what we are able to grow here, we need to find out how much water is coming out of this hill and how much, we can store. But we'll see. That's a lot of water. But where does it come from? Over yonder. It comes from really far that way. And at one point, it kind of dives in the ground. So I don't know if it's coming from the spring or from a pond. I think the first step is going to be to come in here with some tools and clear as much of this as possible and work backwards to find out where that water is coming from.